Today we're going to learn about how to use Career Ready 101 with your students. So the first thing we want to do is to log in. The web address is login.careerready101.com. I've gone ahead and already entered that and hit enter, and it directed me to this login page. For the username, teachers will follow this pattern where your first initial and then last name with the month that you were registered, period, and the year. And the password will be YMCA, your first initial and last name. I'm going to go ahead and log in. Okay. For students, we're going to go ahead and start creating some students. So we can go to Setup, and we're going to add a new student. For the student, we want to follow the same naming convention for all of the students in our school so that everyone is always unique. So we're going to follow the same pattern. So we're going to do first initial, last name, and the month, period, year, and the password will be YMCA, first initial, last name. So, for example, if we have a student named John Smith, so we will do John Smith as the name, and for the username, we're going to do the first initial, last name, and the month is going to be September, point, and the year is 15. For the password, we're going to do capital YMCA, and then a capital J, and a capital S-I-T-H, and we have to repeat that information to double check it. So capital letters for YMCA, and then a capital J, capital S, M-I-T-H. Currently, it doesn't appear that the program really cares whether things are capitalized or not capitalized, but in the future, when more and more users are on this program, it might become important. So it's a good practice to just be in the habit of paying attention to the capitals and lowercase right away from the beginning. It's very helpful to put in an email address so that they can get password help. So I'm going to go ahead and enter an email for myself. That's also something that you can do for your students, is you can enter your YMCA email so that if they need help, you know that that email works, and so when they click the reset password or send password help, you know that that email is going to go through, so they don't end up in some sort of permanent loop of wanting help with their login, but also not knowing how to log into their own email. All right. We need to enter a student ID. Again, this can be any combination that you want. You can also leave it blank. I'm going to go ahead and leave this blank for the moment. The program will generate one automatically for me if I don't enter anything. So if you want for your class to create some sort of first initial last name 1 or something like that, you're certainly welcome to do so. If I already had groups established, I could assign the student to it, but I don't really need to, and I don't need to worry about that, so I can go ahead and click Submit. So at this moment, I could go ahead and print a login page for the student. I'm going to go ahead and say no, don't remember. A lot of students find this helpful. They have a lot of trouble remembering. You can sometimes also email the student the information, but it looks like that's not available on this particular screen at the moment. So it doesn't show the password right now at this moment on this screen, but if I actually print this and it goes to a printer, it does print, it does show the password on that page. So I wonder here if I try to do a PDF, if you'll be able to see what that looks like. Save it to the desktop. zoom in here for you so that you can go ahead and see this example. So this is what would print. So it does print the login website for the student as well as their username and password. So the password does show up when you hit print, even though it doesn't show up on the screen. Be very careful when you're entering this information because students will try to log in, and if you've mistyped something, obviously their login is not going to work for them, and so I've had that trouble in the past. So you can, and this is also another place where you can print the login instructions. You can also go ahead and edit or delete. So if you've made an error, you could go ahead and delete it and create a new one. You can also go ahead directly to create a new student in order to keep creating people in your class until you've created logins for everyone that's in your class. So this is the page right now that you could modify any of the information if you wanted to change the password because you had a typo or something like that. But you are not able to change the username. So if you make a typo in the username, you'll want to go ahead and delete that student and just start fresh, create them a new login. So after you leave this page, if you want to get back to it, you could go back to Browse Students, and you can click the pencil button in order to modify that particular student. So here we can go ahead and look for that student that we just created. Alphabetized by last name here. Okay, so there's John Smith that we created. We could click the pencil, and here's that screen that we were on before. So we could edit his information, his password, or we could delete him and start again. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and create a class. I just want to make sure that it's unique and that I remember my class name. So I might have an afternoon DESI class. So I might say DESI Level 2 afternoon, and I want this to be unique. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is for the year 2015 to 2016. We'll see if the dash works here. And the instructor, I'm going to go ahead and say is my test instructor, which I called first last. So that's the teacher that I'm going to go ahead and use for this particular class. Okay. Now I want to add that student to this class, or I want to add students to this class. So I want to go to class members. Okay, so right now it's showing only the members in this class, but what I can do is toggle so that it's showing members for the whole school. So now I can see all of the students in the school, and anybody that I click the green plus button will be added to my class. So I want to go ahead and add John Smith to my class, so I can do the green plus. And now he's got a check, and he's also a little bit light shaded, so I know that he's in my class. Okay. There's the instructions that you'll find in the program are very, very helpful and user-friendly, so don't be afraid to try something different or new when you're exploring this on your own. All right, so I'm still in my class that I created. How I know that is at the beginning of, at the top of the screen, it will tell me which class I'm in. And I can change that if I want to. I can jump to a different class at any time if I want to or desire. So this is the class that I created, and it's currently the class that I'm in and that I'm modifying information for. Okay, next I'm ready to give my students some work to do. Okay, so I went ahead and clicked on the agenda and said manually add. Right, if just in case we missed that, we can always go to setup, back to class agenda will take me directly here, but I can also go to class manager, takes me to this view, and I can click on agenda and say manually add lessons, nothing is currently in the agenda, so I need to be able to create something in that agenda. And so all these things all take me back to the same view. So again, I can go to setup, I can go directly to class manager and then say add assignments, or I can go to class manager and click on agenda. So a few different ways I can say manually add. All right, so all roads lead to this screen. So many different ways that you can get to this screen. And anything that says auto means that it is determined by the student's pretest. So they take pretest and then they test into a particular level based on what their needs are. Anything that has the green all means that there's different classes, different levels, and you can decide what you want to include and what you don't want to include. I don't usually include the introduction because I feel that the program is quite self-explanatory and I want students to jump in faster. The three main sections that are suggested as kind of a baseline for all students, all classes, are these three right here: reading for information, applied mathematics, and locating information. I'm going to go ahead and click on auto. This will come up with some settings that I can adjust. So if I want students to be able to take the pretest more than once, just be aware that the first time they take the pretest impacts which level they start the lessons at, and even if they take the pretest again or multiple other times, it's still only that very first pretest that determines which level they go into. But sometimes students are disheartened by that score and they want to attempt it a second time, and so you can modify that if you like. All right, so 7 is the maximum that can be achieved within this program. So you can leave that as high as you want. You can also lower it, whatever you'd like, whatever makes sense for you. I always leave this unchecked, require assigned lessons to be completed in order, just because we're still kind of piloting and getting familiar with the program. And like I said, you know, students might feel that that was an inappropriate placement, and I want to have the flexibility to say, okay, all right, fine, try the quiz at the end and see how you do. And maybe that will help the student realize, I actually do need to spend time in this level, or maybe that pretest wasn't a very accurate assessment and they are ready for the next level. So I like to have that flexibility, so I leave that unchecked. There are quizzes within each level, and you can determine how many times you'd like students to be able to take those tests. So again, so you can modify these as you like. Must complete lesson once they start it, or must complete all of the problems, whatever you like. I'm going to go ahead and leave these as the default. Okay, so submit, and now you'll see that the yellow button went away and it says automatic, and I can tell that it's been selected. It also has a green check mark on the left that tells me I've added that to my class. I'm going to go ahead and add these other two that are always required. So it's these three that are considered basic. Business writing is something, and listening for understanding are also things that quite often come up in the job profiles that students look at, and that they want to be able to see, you know, what do I need to work on, how good do I need to get for that. So I like to add just maybe a couple others that are in here. And then if you look down at some of these other things that are possible, everything looks good and helpful, but you do want to be a little bit selective, at least in the beginning. You can always add more. And certainly if you have students that love it and want to spend a lot of time outside of class on these lessons, you can definitely give them more to do. There's pretty much never an end to how much you can accomplish in the program. Okay? So at that point, this class is ready to go. So the student can sign in and can start working on the course.